Okay, here is Honey Fun. And Honey is a 16 and a half hand, 5-year-old thoroughbred mare. What strikes out, or excuse me, stands out to me about her pedigree is just that she's out of an AP Indy mare. So I really like her bottom line. And today she is having her introduction to poles, cavalettis, and her first little cross rail. And goodness, it's sweltering hot in Maryland. It's humid. It's in the 90s. It is pretty awful. When we took this video, I knew I wanted to do the video of poles and things, so we didn't video the warm up to make sure that it wasn't going to be too long. But it was interesting, she was warm. Obviously, she's sweating. It's hot after we warmed up. And then she actually sort of cooled out as we did the poles and things, which is cool. What I like noting about that is just that, if they're cooling down as you're still working them, then that means that they're not nervous, they're not anxious. They have to be, for lack of a better word, kind of chill in their brain in order for their body to be sort of cooling down, which is just good. It's just a cool thing to note about her. So we spent a whole bunch of time figurating over all the poles and things, just making sure she felt super comfortable with that. And then when she felt like walking over everything was a walk in the park, then we're going to repeat all of that in the trot. And then I don't really ever have any plans beyond that because every horse is different. So what's going to work best to get a horse sort of starting to understand the form and this whole idea of jumping notion that we're going to ask them to do. It's a little bit of a different path for each horse. Some horses really just figure out jumping super, super easy and straightforward from the trot. Others need to start coming in the canter in order for it to click in their brains. And I don't know, I just have to get rolling with each horse in order to sort of figure out what I think the best strategy is going to be for them for it to all click and make sense. Now, what I do love about doing polls is that it forces me to make sure that I have them steering and turning and sort of straight between the legs and all that kind of stuff. So actually, that was really good for Honey. It's sort of like put an end to any sort of like drift towards the gate and that sort of thing because I had to be more focused and accurate with the pole and that end of the ring by the gate. So it just kind of eliminated all of that silly leaning out the outside shoulder. And she was very good about trotting over all the things. She's doing exactly what I'm asking her to do. She's straight. She's keeping track of her feet. She's obviously doing it. So all of this is wonderful. I've noted at this point in the ride that she's a couple of times she makes like a little half attempt, like she wants to land in the canter, but she does not actually. She makes the motion for like a half a stride, but then she actually comes away trotting, which is totally fine. It's not like a good or bad thing. It's just something to note about her as I'm riding her around. It's just something to be curious about. And I'm never really harshly harping on the contact when I'm introducing them to poles and things because I do feel like they need to lift their head, poke out their nose a bit in order to see things best and most clearly. But I always want to have a soft working communication with them, and Honey is always she's kind of always there. That's just her average is she's kind of always round and soft and always having that conversation with you, which is nice. It's just not something that you have to think about. It's right there. So I decided to leave the first couple in here. So first time up to the X. I mean, obviously, I'm trying to train myself out of allowing the first couple of times to just be like just survive. I'm trying to think, well, if I just expect them to be straight and to be better, then they probably will do better. Honey there, she wasn't sure, but she was relatively straight and she went. And okay, same thing that way. Jumping a little bit awkwardly, still landing in the trot, but being straight and being very willing to do the things. And so after the second time, I'm thinking, like, okay, I need to figure out a way to kind of help her understand the footwork and the form, the expectations that we have about how this goes because she's not being bad. She literally just has no idea. I put something in front of her. She's never seen it before and she's doing the absolute best that she can. So she just needs me to sort of help explain this to her a little bit easier so that it can be a more pleasant experience for her. So again, third time, she's straight. She actually is like, oh, okay, I'm getting this. We're just going to trot over these raised up poles, no problem, which is fine. But of course, we want her to learn to come away in the canter. So after this time, I think down here in the corner, I ask her to canter. Of course, I'm hoping that she was going to just kind of figure that out for herself. Like, oh, it would make more sense just to trot it and use the X as a canter transition. But after 4 times, she's not getting that. So I'm going to try and lead her to that answer. And so, it's actually so funny. She actually didn't canter the crossrail, obviously. She wanted to break to the trot a couple steps ahead, which is fine. But just that, literally like a third of a 20-meter circle of canter, and then sort of trying to approach the canter was all she needed. That just was her light bulb moment, which is just so funny because she didn't actually canter it. But just saying to her, hey, let's think about cantering also. She was like, oh, great idea. Why didn't you say that like 4 times ago when we started trotting this crossrail? Which is a valid thought. I probably should have thought about it like 3 times ago. So anyway, it's just funny, what clicks for some horses. So there she almost landed on the left lead. That was close. Then, okay, so we worked the cavaletti for a second, got the left lead. For whatever reason, just another curious thing, she finds the right lead is her preferred lead to pick up right now. They all tend to have a lead. Usually it's the left, but for her, it's the right. That was actually quite good. Good girl, honey. Yeah, so she's sort of getting it, like she had her little light bulb moment and she was like, oh, wish she could have explained that a little better, a little faster. She's like, but now that you have sort of explained it to me, she's like rolling with it, which is great. Good girl. I think I took one tug too many at that. And then that was really good. She learned from the time before, when she knocked the cavaletti the previous time. And then in the next corner, she did a much better job of compressing and being careful with her feet. So that was really good. And then, okay, she wants to trot it that time. No big deal. I was happy that she stayed straight and she landed on the left lead. I'm happy that they're landing in the canter at this point, period. And then to be smart enough to land on the correct lead is awesome. And then that was really good again. So at this point, she's definitely starting to get tired. So we're about to close this up because, it's 95 degrees and humid. The real feel is definitely in the hundreds. And that was super good. She actually she actually jumped that with a bit of form and understanding. So it's a really good girl. And then again, really good. Now that time she swapped to the right, which I sort of felt like was her way of telling me she was getting pretty darn pooped. So we called it a day there. But it's very good. I mean, what more can you ask from a horse? Their first time over poles and little teeny jumps and things. She was very good. This is just her on cross ties before our ride, getting tacked up. She's excellent on cross ties. She's wonderful to work with on the ground. She's a type of horse that always has a happy expression on her face. She loves herself some carrots. Very sweet girl.